در هنگام برگزاری همایش بزرگ دانشمندان ژئوفیزیکدان آمریکایی در سان فرانسیسکو که با حضور 24,000 کارشناس و دانشمند و علاقمند برگزار شد، یکی از کارشناسان بزرگ حوزه مدیریت منابع آب به نام دکتر لال که استاد دانشگاه کلمبیا نیویورک هست رو دیدم. از دکتر لال درباره مسائل مختلفی مرتبط با مصرف آب برای کشاورزی و نحوه آبیاری و مدیریت منابع آب زیرزمینی سوال کردم. بخش نخست گفتگو با پروفسور لال رو با هم می‌بینیم. در حال حاضر بسیاری از کشورهای جهان به ویژه در خاورمیانه و شمال آفریقا نسبت به از دست رفتن منابع آب زیرزمینی خود بی‌توجه هستند. برخی نیز برای تولید کشاورزی بیشتر آبخوان‌های خود را به نابودی می‌کشانند. آیا می‌توان سرنوشت کشورهای بی‌توجه به مدیریت منابع آب زیرزمینی در دهه‌های آتی را پیش‌بینی کرد؟
So this is a really interesting question because at the moment I would say that the vast majority of countries in the world are not paying attention to groundwater management. Now, the best way to think about this is that in most of these places, the groundwater that is being withdrawn, it's probably 500 years to 10,000 years in age. What that means is that every drop of water that is withdrawn from those aquifers would on average be replaced in 500 to 10,000 years. So you're not going to get it back. It's mining. It's the same as what you do with extraction of oil. So in at least the academic circles, from a sustainability perspective, the thinking is that one should try to use the renewable water supply which is coming with the annual precipitation. And since we know that there is a lot of variability in that, in years that are very dry, you try to make it up with groundwater. In the years that are very wet, you try to find ways to save that water and either inject it back in the ground or hold it in reservoirs where the reservoir is chosen in such a way that the water is infiltrating back into the ground also. But if I look at the reality of this, we are not seeing that happening in most places. So if I look at northwest India, if I look at peninsular India, if I look at Pakistan, if I look at Afghanistan, if I look at most of the Middle East and Northern Africa, with the exception perhaps of Israel, we see the same problem. If I look at the United States and California and the middle part of the country, we see the same problem. If I look at Spain and northwest China and parts of Australia, we see the same problem. So your question, is pertinent in a very broad sense. So why are the Israelis different, you may ask? Israel recognized early on that the pattern that we were seeing worldwide was there was a goal of food security that was established by every government. And the thinking was that if your country is not food secure, it's vulnerable to attack, or we think back to the Middle Ages. That's what happened. You surrounded a fort and the food supply ran out, you took it over. So that's kind of the underlying thinking. So to promote food security, what every country was doing was essential cereals. This is rice, this is wheat. There were programs to intensify their cultivation, and there were programs to provide all the inputs needed to do those. This is water, this is fertilizers, and they were heavily subsidized. So this is what we have seen in every country, starting with the United States on out. The Israelis thought about this, and they realized that for a place which is bordering the desert, bordering the ocean where salt water can come in, this cannot happen. They just don't have the resources to do it. So they use a lot of groundwater, but they also treat a lot of their urban wastewater because they also have a highly dense population, and that treated wastewater is used for agriculture. So that's on the water side. But now let's look at what Israel does for food. They gave up on the idea of food security. Okay? So what they do in their agriculture is that they use drip irrigation, which uses much less, but it is much more expensive. So how can you justify using something like drip irrigation, which is expensive, to grow crops that are made very cheap because you want to provide them very cheaply to the general population? So their agriculture is basically going to produce clementines or oranges, to produce flowers, to produce tomatoes, basically things that are high cash value and can be grown in greenhouses under controlled conditions so you can get higher productivity without using so much water and without really using a lot of fertilizer as well. So very controlled precision agriculture. Even when it is not in the greenhouse, they are going for high cash value crops. So their thinking is that they bring in coal from Australia to generate electricity to pump groundwater. This is all very expensive. This is not secure on the energy side either, because in a war situation somebody could block those tankers from coming in basically. But that's their reality. So they work with that. They work with the idea that if they produce high cash value agriculture, they can export it. The money they earn from that can be used to buy cheap food from the other countries that are very happy to produce cheap basic food. So this is a solution peculiar to Israel, but it's interesting to think about because it shows a balancing of both internal and external factors, agriculture, energy, and water in a way that for them works out. Now, for every country, this would be a different story to some extent because their resource balance is different, their population characteristics are different. But it's worth keeping in mind that the story is essentially looking at not cheapening water for the sake of having food security, and that's the mistake being made in many countries because in most countries, 90% of the water that's getting used is going for producing agricultural products at an efficiency which is very low. They're doing